Romancing the Stone is a 1984 film that tells the story of a mousy romance novelist who sets off for Colombia to ransom her kidnapped sister and soon finds herself in the middle of one of her own stories, facing a dangerous adventure of hunting for treasure with an irreverent soldier of fortune. Many things had to come together for this film to work, and me and my guests have come together to discuss the who, what, when, and where on this episode of I Love This Movie. And let's get into who my guests are. We have John the host, and we have Stephan from Cannibal Video. Welcome, guys, to my channel.
Hello, thank you for letting me be the Danny DeVito in this trio.
Holy shit.
First of all, where can everyone find you? I want to make sure everyone gets their plugs in here.
John, you want to go first?
Sure. You can find me at They Said We Said on the YouTubes. You could follow me on Twitter at JontheHost or at The Cult of Films. And The Cult of Films is pretty much what we are focusing on right now. It's a fun little show about your favorite non-mainstream movies. And you could see, people like awesome people like Lindsay Washburn. Hopefully one day, Mr. JustDaggers on there as well, talking about some film.
Awesome. Stephan, where can people find you?
On Cannibal Video, you can go to cannibal.video and we'll pop up, or you can check me out on JustDaggers. Just did a video with Lindsay and Chris from Bad Movie Night and made them watch some horrible things. And we do stuff.
It was a good time. Yes, make sure you check out the most recent reaction video on there.
The only reaction video.
The only reaction video so far. More to come, hopefully, in the future.
I guess you could find all three of us on Bad Movie Night quite a bit.
That's
too.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. But Romancing the Stone, that is what we are here to talk about. And thank you guys so much for joining me to talk about this film. I wanted to talk about this film for a long time, and I kicked it out to John, say, hey, you want to talk about this movie? I know you like it too. And then Stephan, you expressed interest as well. So I'm like, let's all get together and talk about this movie. So first of all, what are your guys' overall reactions and thoughts about this movie?
This movie's great. This movie used to play on network TV all the time. I watched it. I'm a big fan of all the Indiana Jones-esque, escapades that the movies would give. This Alan Quartermain, these were like things that I watched all the time. I love this stuff.
It's no Gwendolyn. However,
very few things are.
Very few things are. This is a little bit more family friendly, but I'm surprised that you somehow knew that I was, as a child, such a fan of the action adventure, like Stephan said, like the Indiana Jones series, Star Wars and all that, of course. But I'm also a big closeted rom-com fan. So this was the best of both worlds. So,
Definitely.
My mom listened to a lot of like Sunny 106.5, listened to a lot of Kenny G, and liked her romance novels and romance movies. But this was one that I felt actually kicked some ass also. So
right?
I love this series, as well as the subsequent sequel and maybe kind of a blood relative third installment.
Yes, War of the Roses. And just like you said, John, I grew up watching this film. It was, and like Stephan said, it was on network TV all the time. I think it made the rounds of TNT and TBS, like so many of those childhood films. And what I really loved about this film was you can't quite put it in the box of a romantic comedy, but it's much more action adventure and just straight up comedy and just a lot more fun. It doesn't fall into those tropes and cliches of a regular romantic comedy. It kind of makes its own mark.
This really new kind of script, something that started a whole new genre in Hollywood.
Absolutely. It is it's a genre creator, right? And a very underrated film, which a lot of things had to come together to make this film in the first place. A lot of things had to fall in line, from an actress turned screenwriter that moonlighted as a screenwriter that came up with this idea in the first place, and a young producer, hotshot, that was on this like kind of floundering TV show that took a chance on it. Like, a lot of people pass this material up, and the right people actually took the chance on it.
And was always accused of, it's ridiculous to pay that much money for a first-time writer. And my take is, if it's a first-time writer or it's a 10th screenplay they've written, if it's there, it's priceless.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, I've loved this movie forever, but I didn't know quite the backstory of how it came together and how many pieces had to fall in place over the years. And the cinema and movies that we got after this because of the success of this movie.
100%, yeah.
Like we wouldn't get Back to the Future without this movie. You know?
And let's talk about the Zemeckis in the room, right?
Right?
Exactly. I think all the times I watched this was like very young. Like I've definitely seen this like 50 times, but it was probably all before I turned like 15 or something.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the things that you are picking up then are not the things that I enjoyed now. Like I don't think I even caught so much on like this was a romantic story. Like that was like over as a kid. This is just like, oh man, that guy's awesome. He's got a gun.
Right?
He's doing this, doing that. Oh, they're looking for like a gem. This is great. There's alligators. Everything a kid needs. And now like as an adult, you're like, oh wow, there's a lot more to this. I don't think I even picked up that the lady was kind of a sad, like, it's just an old cat lady. Like you were just like waiting for the action, or, it's TV, so you didn't come in at the same part every time. You may see this a million times, but through different random chunks. It's got so much, I think you can carry on from as a kid to an adult and enjoy it from different aspects. Got a lot going for it. And Zemeckis, Jesus, didn't realize that at all until this viewing.
And it's crazy because I mean he'd done a couple movies, but they all tanked, and like his career was essentially over until Michael Douglas was like, I have this movie for you, I want you to do it. And the studio thought this movie was just gonna flop for some reason. I think somebody had it out for it, I don't know. And so he was preemptively fired from Cocoon. But since this movie was such a big hit, he got to go forward and do Back to the Future, which went on to lead to one of the most beloved trilogies of all time. And
it's all right, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's still making money to this day.
Yeah, talent recognizes talent, right? Like Steven Spielberg found Zemeckis early, and he was the one that kind of co-funded his first two projects because he definitely saw that there was something there. And he also, was the screenwriter for one of the most, famous movies of all time. So Zemeckis wasn't a slouch. He just was a proven non-money maker. And around this time, when all these giant franchises were spawning, that's exactly what you didn't want. It's like, yeah, this guy's talented, but he's just not getting the turnstiles going. So that's why he was kind of cast out. And I always think it's funny that he's like, yeah, my career was over, but he was 23 years old.
Right?
Like, fuck you.
So young.
Well, it only takes so much to end a career, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm such a hack. I worked with Spielberg twice, and
But even some of the acting careers that we got that blossomed out of the success of this film, because I mean, Danny DeVito was just kind of hanging out in New York doing off Broadway and off Broadway stuff. And without this film, I mean, most kids know him today from memes and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but this was the movie that really, really solidified him as a comedic actor.
If they're hiking through the jungle, there's nothing I can do about it. I have a car. I am not Tarzan.
Yeah, well, you got then Taxi and Junior and Twins, all the good
Right?
stuff. He looks tall in this. Does he not look taller?
they shot him at an angle. Yeah.
I think
Right?
because he was like, kind of like skinny in this, like it made his whole proportions different because he's now more kind of like a rectangle. So
Yeah,
like
he's a little
it
more
makes you look
squat.
shorter. Yeah.
Well, I love how
and as you get older, you shrink.
Michael Douglas is just like, I have a perfect role for you. It's gonna be Ralph, and Danny DeVito's like, sweet, that's awesome, and he's like looking through the script. Oh, Ralph looks around the corner. So like he made this role bigger. He's like, no, I'm gonna, make it wherever I want. He kind of took this role and ran with it. And Douglas, being a friend of Dan DeVito and recognizing again talent, he's just like, yeah, if you could make this role bigger and make it make sense and make it funny, then go ahead. And it just turned out to be so great. And especially his, him reprising the role in Jewel of Denial. And yes, this kind of started his acting career, and he got to be in those movies that you mentioned before, but it also was, I think, kind of the genesis for him directing, because Danny DeVito as a director is fucking phenomenal. Like Throw Mama from the Train and Death to Smoochie and War of the Roses, like he's literally like one of my favorite filmmakers also.
No, he's great. And we have Kathleen Turner, who before this was, I mean, she was kind of put in that box of just sex pot.
Yep.
Because she did Body Heat, which is a great movie, and she does great in it. But no one really could see her beyond just that femme fatale role. But with this one, she got to do more what she wanted to do, because she was a self-professed tomboy, and she liked getting dirty. She liked doing her own stunts. She wanted to play the dowdy, kind of frumpy girl who kind of discovers her own strength and becomes this woman who can take care of herself now.
I love this kind of film, when you sort of risk yourself. I used to love just throwing myself around and doing most of my own stunts.
And she nails it.
She does. She does a great job.
She nailed it so hard that she had 6 stitches working in this movie. She got 3 of them from the plane scene, which, you know, you don't like, besides him cutting the snake in half, you don't really think of as so perilous, but I guess they chopped the plane in half. They just left all the rusted metal everywhere.
They had just sort of broken the back off the airplane, but it was all sharp edges.
So I guess she tripped and then impaled her arm on one of the things, and the other one is when they're rolling around at kind of the end of the movie with the crocodiles and everything. She busted her head open on the gravel and you know, had another 3 stitches in her head. So the fact that if she wasn't so like, she did most of her own stunts, if she wasn't so down to do this, like, she owned this damn role too. Like, everyone, I think that's what like allows this movie to transcend kind of what it is because the people that were involved cared so much about it. And that shows. It really shows.
It
like
does.
All these people, this was a passion, passion project, even from Zemeckis. And when people really give a shit about the projects, it comes through.
We had a lot of fun, honestly fun. We laughed our asses off.
It really does. And I mean, this is, even if you just watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, you can tell everyone is just having a blast, even though it's raining and they're having trouble getting equipment where they need to, and roads are being washed out and they're not getting a lot of support from the studio and stuff. You can tell that they're just having a ball making this movie. And then that comes through when you watch the movie. It's just,
it looks
it's a
like
blast.
fun and impressive at times. Like that mudslide, like, it just made me think of like the filming that scene. Like, he's doing a giant like slip and slide, like with the cameras like laying down with him. That's all. That's a great shot. There's some fun things that, like, you're like, okay, what is it? There's a lot more going on to a lot of these things than you're expected for what this movie would have been then. And I really do think they nailed a lot of the comedy things, letting Danny DeVito like do his things. Everyone has their own punches. Like, there's not just a character that's, oh, they're here for comic relief. They all nail different things. Like Danny DeVito falling when he's going to get his wanted poster. That's one of the funny, I think of that, like, that's what I think of when I think of this movie, is that stupid scene, his little plop and flop.
Ralph, goddammit, I don't care what you gotta do. Just get me that map.
His cousin always saying, look at those snappers.
Look at those snappers.
Look at those snappers, Ralph.
It's seriously one of the most well-rounded films too. I think you could equate this to something like a Ghostbusters, where it was kind of a genre-defining film. Is as good as Ghostbusters. It doesn't hold up as well as Ghostbusters, I don't think, in my opinion. But it nails when it's supposed to be funny, it is funny. When it's supposed to be romantic, it nails that. And when it's supposed to be exciting, it has some really good action set pieces like that.
Yes, it does.
The Bronco scene or whatever, like going through the village, is really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a
mule.
damn good car
mule.
chase. Yeah.
That guy was great.
Yeah.
Yes, he
From the
was.
moment he realizes who she is on, that's like, it's so good. Like, and his little cast of thugs who, like, you picture him at night reading that like bedtime stories to them, and like, oh, it's John Wilder.
It's
And, like,
Juanita.
back away all sappy. It's fantastic.
Esta es Juanita Wilder, la que escribe las novelas que le leo los sábados. Juanita. Le damos la bienvenida, ¿verdad, muchachos?
Juanita, es Juanita.
Come in.
And
It's very wholesome.
it is very wholesome. And the movie starts out, we get a little stinger, kind of like, it's almost like a horror movie stinger, where it kind of, sets the tone before the title sequence. And
Or like Toy Story.
yes, or Toy Story, where we're living out the fantasy that she's writing. And we're inside one of her stories. And we meet Angelina, and she kills Grogan, and we're introduced to this figure of Jesse, which is like her ideal man. That's the person that's out there that she's projecting all her hopes and dreams and her hopeless romantic ideology upon this one man that's out there for her.
But suddenly there he was, my beloved Jesse.
Right.
And then we cut to her in her apartment, and she's in slippers and like this flannel nightgown, and she's just bawling her eyes out.
I knew then that we would spend the rest of our lives together. Forever.
And she's just portrayed as this dowdy, frumpy, like little shrinking violet of a woman.
But she is beautiful. Like she dolls up, but she just chooses not to be. Like her friends trying to make her be a socialite with her fame and all that. But it's like, it's not what's into it, because she has this ideal of romance on this pedestal that's just like completely unattainable, which is great, because all the and it is that there is a lot of movie magic involved, where it's just like her, she's this famous person, and her sister gets stolen to Colombia and all these things
by like Batman's son. Like, what the hell was that? It's a bolo and knocks her perfectly in the car, and then he drives away.
Yeah,
this is genius.
Oh, Kathleen, to come to Colombia. Yeah.
But that's like, it's almost things that are played for humor too. Like that would make me as an adult laugh. As a kid, I was like, oh dude, that's crazy. But now I'm like, all right, I don't know who that was written for, but it doesn't matter, because it hit me at every age that I watched this movie. I love that shit. I love that opening of the thing where it wasn't this stereotypical, where it's clearly Michael Douglas and she's imagined him ahead of time.
Right.
I hate when movies do that. I hate when they have dreams of things they haven't seen yet, and they didn't fall into that trap. She's funny while she's doing that thing where she's like, they even stole my Bible. And like that made me laugh.
The man who killed my father, raped and murdered my sister, burned my ranch, shot my dog, and stole my Bible.
I thought there was a great name for a movie. It came out of that, like Bastards Have Brothers. I'm like,
Bastards Have Brothers.
Bastards Have Brothers.
That would be
that could be a whole thing, like Bastards Have Brothers 5. Like,
yes,
that'd be great.
Great Western exploitation.
But if there was one law of the West, bastards had brothers who seemed to ride forever.
I did have to do some explaining, because I forgot how racy that opening is. Yeah, kind of, because I put this on last night, and just to rewatch it so it was fresh for today. And my girls are out, and my girls are like 7 and 9 years old. And I'm like, oh yeah, you guys could actually watch. finally, you guys can watch a movie that Dad's watching. I'm not watching it in the corner on my phone like a weirdo, like usually, especially for anything we're watching for Bad Movie Night. But this one, I was like, oh yeah, it's romantic. I used to watch this all the time. And then my daughter's just like, that girl doesn't have clothes, and the other one's just like, I could see a nipple. And I'm like, okay, fast forward this a little bit.
Right. I mean, it was rated PG, but I mean, that's the 80s for you. I mean, there's so much.
Different world.
Very different world. You could get
Poltergeist was PG, for fuck's
right.
sake.
But then we get introduced to this plot of her sister getting kidnapped because her husband was murdered under mysterious reasons. I mean, it's Colombia in the 80s, which is
the
probably
mom from Monster Squad.
Yes. Mary Ellen Trainor, who is in like every 80s and early 90s movies to ever be produced. She was in
married to Zemeckis.
Was she? Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a little bit of sense. Because I mean, she was in Die Hard. She was in all the Lethal Weapon movies. She's been in a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Never as the star. She's always like that. She's a female character actor. She's a female that guy.
She's the mom or the friend.
Yes, the mom or the friend.
Yeah.
But we're introduced to this kidnap plot where she's got to take this map that was sent to her down to Colombia. And this woman can't even like say no to street vendors outside her apartment. You know, she has no idea what she's getting into, because like her agent is saying like, do you have your shots? And she has no concept of how dangerous South America is, especially in the 80s, Colombia, with all the drug trafficking and everything like that going on down there. It would just be a nightmare.
It's not Colombia in the 2020s.
No, very, 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 very different. I mean, she's not going to Medellin or anything like that, but pretty close.
You're not up to this, Joan, and you know it.
I know. But she's my sister.
What do you think about the whole maps, like, you know, plot of the thing? What age do you think that map is from? Because that's my big plot hole problem there. Because it's like an ancient, like, you know, Indiana Jonesy map, but then we have our jewel is inside of like pottery you would buy outside the airport,
right?
And there's a newspaper inside that to even let you know that it's certainly not just some old glazed, you know, bunny or whatever.
Right. I would say it's probably maybe from the 50s or 60s, perhaps. That's
that weird. Why do people bury things? I don't even understand. I guess I don't understand treasure.
I guess. Yeah, it's like, why would you bury it? And then have a map telling other people where it is.
Well, and like, it's like, oh, like, exactly. Like, why make a map that would have like puns and like, it's the mother's milk and it's by the pitchfork of the tree. And like, if that map is for you, you could just be like, it's by that thing that time. And you'd be like, yeah.
Where I put it.
See, it did a lot of things well. It didn't do any one thing great, and that was one of the things. The jewel itself looked like it probably could have been bought at Ross too, but I like that there was a joke on set where whoever got injured the most got a jewel for that week, because they kept kind of like trying new jewels, and they're like, yeah, this one doesn't look great. I'm kind of surprised that's the one that they landed on. But I guess Kathleen Turner was the one that received the most, because she just
kept getting hurt
the entire time on the set.
And then the whole side of the mountain started to come down. So I was almost buried. They pulled me out of there, and I'm saying, please don't pull, please dig, you know, but they just yanked me out, tore all the skin off my left leg.
For me, I mean, I understand that it doesn't quite hold up to modern storytelling, but it plays into that thing where it's one of her stories come to life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly what everything she's going through is trying to mirror, because she becomes a character in her own story.
It's Jumanji for grown-ups.
Yes.
The great idea that Diane Thomas came up with is, this is a woman who writes women's romances, and her life becomes one of those women's romances.
I think it works. Like I'm a person that nitpicks things to death, and like if my biggest nitpick is that stupid thing about the jewel and about why the like, you know, the I don't even know, the sail would be up on a boat at the end. Like those are my only really big problems. And I'm like aside from that, I was along for the journey, which is not something I can usually do. I nitpick constantly, and I was just enjoying everything. I think there's a great deal of that is the nostalgia factor, where I'm like, oh yeah, this part, cool, remember that, I love it. I want to go catch birds in the Amazon. This will be great.
Yeah, I mean, on face value, it's kind of a messed up plot, right? Because it's just like, cat lady goes to Colombia, gets taken advantage of by a guy, like exploiting her for cashier checks or traveler's checks. It's American like on Express. Face value, it's pretty messed up.
Now, I ain't cheap, but I can be had. My minimum price for taking a stranded woman to a telephone is $400.
Will you take $375 in traveler's checks?
American Express?
Of course.
Got a deal.
But it's done, it's executed so well and in such a wholesome way. Like, and there's some moments of like horror too. Like that guy gets his hand bitten off.
Right.
Like, yeah. And it's gruesome.
It's very gruesome. Good.
Thank you.
All that stuff is nice. I would have loved to have seen how many there's like just a mass grave of alligators, because he's killed everything he's seen trying to find that jewel.
Find that one alligator.
Or if he dove into the water and you just see him like land elbow first onto the alligator and he got it right there.
Yeah,
Oh my
they're real
God.
alligators too. Michael Douglas said he like slid for one and tried to grab the tail, and I guess the crocodile or alligator, whatever it was, like smacked him in the face a couple times. He's like, I got my bell rung. I saw stars. I guess he got
Oh yeah, their
like,
tails can break your legs.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, even worse than that, I was reading an article about, because a couple years ago was the 35th anniversary of this film. And I know it seems it's like
I'm
holy
so
shit,
old now.
35
Feels like
years,
just yesterday.
right? But one of the crocodile wranglers had to go to try to retrieve this one of the crocs that got away. They had like put wire around its mouth or something, and the wire came off, and this crocodile got a hold of his hand and didn't rip it off, but it messed it up pretty bad. And Michael Douglas visited him in the hospital.
Gave him a jewel.
No, close.
You get the jewel this week, buddy.
Right, you get it. You've earned it. And the guy just whispered in his ear, "My Rolex, my Rolex." Evidently, the only reason he still had a hand was because the crocodile bit down on his Rolex, but in the process of it, the Rolex came off, but they sent some divers down and were able to retrieve it. And Michael Douglas was like, this would be a great commercial for Rolex watches, that it survived that much trauma.
It was still working?
I don't know if it was still working, but they did recover it.
I mean, the stories with those crocodiles down there, they were real.
I mean, this was just such good, like, Robert Zemeckis. And I mean, I give Robert Zemeckis a lot of crap a lot of times, because he, later in his career, he kind of went to the kind of more schlocky stuff like Christmas Carol, Beowulf, and he was just kind of chasing that like blockbuster money. But I mean, when he wants to do films like this, like Death Becomes Her is one of my, that's my jam.
Look at me, Ernest. Just look at me. I'm soaking wet.
Right? Like, he is so good at doing stuff like this. And he really showed his chops with the more action set pieces and the more like horrifying things. And I mean, and Michael Douglas, man, like this shaped his entire career basically going forward. He was just going to be a producer. He didn't want to do the acting thing. He was going to leave acting once that show was over. I think like Streets of San Francisco. Yeah. And then, I mean, we got some great stuff from Michael Douglas too. So, I mean, we owe a lot to this movie.
Thinking in terms, if a production company, thinking as a producer, and not thinking of parts for me as an actor, which I've come to realize is a mistake, because there's so few good parts anyway, that you might as well, if you're going to produce, find something for yourself to act in.
Yeah, and everyone in it just fit their characters so well, especially him, because I mean, he's not the quintessential action guy, you know, like with big muscles, and you know, he's meant to have flaws and be a little sleazy at times. You know, you're not quite sure what to make of him right away, because is he gonna, you know, leave her destitute? Is he going to steal the map? You don't quite know his intentions until the very end.
Yeah.
What exactly he's doing, and his performance helps lead you in that direction.
I think little kid me didn't pick that up at all about the sorry to cut you off, but
no.
Any of the like you know, now it's like beating you over the head like, and do you have a Xerox machine? Is there Xerox machine? It could get a map.
Size?
Okay, good. And, like, you even see him like take it from under the bed and put it back in her bag. So like it was totally obvious. But I was watching this one because I don't think I've seen this movie in 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh shit, this guy here, what a best.
Rie, Anchor Steam, Dr. Brown.
A Xerox machine.
Yes, but she's broken.
He goes full Han Solo, right? Like my favorite line of the movie is, "I almost just died and you're drinking," and then he grabs the.
What the hell are you doing? Drinking? I could have been killing. You're drinking.
And there's so many great moments like that. Just the little one-liners when they're, they either just died or about to die. One of my favorites is after they go over the waterfall together and they end up on opposite sides of this raging river.
Yeah.
And he goes, Joan Wilder, I thought you drowned. And she goes, I did.
Man, I thought you drowned. I did.
It looked like he dropped the gem when he went off that.
Oh, yes.
I was like, the gem.
I doubt they had a second take for that shot. Though.
Right.
It was one and done on that one.
The river got the gem award that week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did he ever shoot anybody in this movie? Like, he attempted many, many times and never really had to reload. He would fire hundreds of shots out of his gun and it was all fine. But I don't even think anybody got shot across. Like, no serious injuries aside from losing a hand, really.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito gets roughed up off screen.
I had it in my hands, Ira. These hands that are gonna break every bone in your body. Later.
But no, the violence was,
was
more alluded to. I mean, you have him cut her hand at the end to try to force Michael Douglas to say where the jewel is and everything. But other than that, it's not an overly violent film. I mean, there's action, there's gunfire and gunplay and car chases and all that kind of stuff and
Just enough
explosions.
to make a kid want to have a gun.
Exactly.
Did anyone else laugh at that exchange for the map for the sister? He's like, all right, put it out so I can see you. He can't see her at all. She could already be doing the thing he wants. He's like, okay, now do it more. And he's like, still not seeing. He pops out after she does it. Like, is there a series of mirrors? What was he looking at her with?
Stop right there. Let me see the map.
Where are you?
Let me see the map.
And then he just shoves the sister out into the corridor.
Let me see your lane.
And the score in this is fantastic too. I think it's Alan Silvestri.
Yes.
Is like a third film or something. Like, this is the guy that went on to do all like the Marvel films and all that. So scored so well. Just great all around. Very well rounded. Like I said, that's why it's so remembered and beloved today. But it's one of those that, I mean, I probably unfairly compared it to like a Ghostbusters and Star Wars and stuff, just for being like a genre creator, but it's not talked about like those films. Like,
it isn't.
I mean, you're talking about it and that's great, but not a lot of people like go back. No one went back for this film, and that's unfortunate.
No, it's very
going to be gone in 20 years, I guarantee it, because without TV like playing things, because that's how movies got baked into your brain. Just because there was nothing else to do, you watch TV. Now, because there are so many options and you are picking everything you're watching, these type of movies are going to get lost. So like, they need to be talked about on the internet.
They do. And I mean, because the talent that you had in this movie with Alan Silvestri, Robert Zemeckis, Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas, Danny DeVito, fucking Dean Cundy was the Dean on this movie. We didn't
even talk about Dean Cundy.
I know, right? And just so many wonderful people came together to make this movie, and it's a shame that not more people talk about it. And Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas are my favorite on-screen couple ever because they work so well together. And they've reunited again with the Kaminsky Method on Netflix. She plays one of his ex-wives, which is great. And they have more of a War of the Roses relationship, I think, on that show than this kind of relationship.
Hello, ex-wife.
Hello, ex-husband. Is this a bad time?
No, it's fine. I'm just taking a little break.
Jack and Pepper.
You know me too well.
To know you is to divorce you.
But again, the chemistry they have is another thing that really, really makes this movie what it is.
And that's why they're so comfortable to do love scenes, friend scenes, and scenes where they're literally trying to kill each other, because they have such a comfort with each other that any emotion that they're trying to convey that has to do with the other actor, they play off each other so well. They're like this is very much like a Abbott and Costello type film, and which carried over to the sequel and War of the Roses and everything else that they did.
Yeah, because it's not just the jokey comedy. There's so much physical comedy in all three of those films.
I lost my Langostino.
This is one of the only movies that I believe, usually, that like 4-minute relationship where it's like, all right, we've met, we're in the bed.
Right, yeah.
I believe this one because you set up how like she's such like a desperate, lonely person, and like he's kind of a scumbag. So like, for him it's like, it's Tuesday, but for her she's like, oh my God, this is that man of my dreams. He's playing all the roles I need, and just like, yep, that's gonna happen.
She's eliminated 99% of the male species except this one person, and he happened to be it. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I just love because he's kind of introduced. The first shot we get of him is like the same shot that we get of Jesse at the beginning, but then the shot rings out and you see the water come out of his little pack, and then it's not the same action that happens. He doesn't just jump into rescue mode. He's trying to defend himself, really.
I love that beat though, where like he's like, son of a bitch, and he fires 100 shots, missing every single one of them. It's beautiful.
Fuera!
And that's a great character introduction because we never really see his face until he leans down and he's like, hi.
Yeah. We don't know his name until the airplane bit.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
You want to know something crazy?
What?
I don't even know your name.
Well, you never asked me.
That hotboxing the airplane is hysterical. They're putting whole keys in the fire
keys
in
of
such an
marijuana.
enclosed place. Oh my gosh. She's like, I'm getting dizzy. I'm like, you would be dead.
Yeah, that's what I call a campfire.
They've got that going on, and then they're drinking the who knows how
almost
old
the whole
scotch.
bottle.
Yeah.
And he was still able to cut that snake with lightning speed.
Oh my God.
And there's no water, we know, so they're not hydrated. That would be cutting right through them.
Right?
Hiking all day, you'd be dog tired just from walking around there and all the adrenaline. Then to kill that bottle and your air is non-breathable. Oh, respect.
That snake scene though, that was the one scene that really freaked me out as a kid because the crocodiles didn't really bother me. I'm like, ooh, danger. But the snake scene was because it's such a huge snake.
It got magician vibes though, like the scarf, because he's like pull. They change angle a little bit, pull. Like I'm like, okay, how long is this snake?
And that was, maybe an homage to Indy a little bit. A lot of the, the crocodiles and the snakes and whatnot. But I mean, how could you not? If you're in the jungle, you use jungle things, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly.
It's almost a one-up of Indy because he's like, I'm not scared of snakes, bitch. I killed the snake.
Yeah. And ate it. He's like, it's delicious. Yeah.
Goddamn Bushmaster.
Is it poisonous?
Yeah. But very tasty.
But then after we, he agrees to help her for her $345 or $375 in traveler's checks, American Express, which makes it great. And when the establishment of how they feel about each other, and a great character moment is right at the beginning of that, where she kind of expects him to carry the luggage.
Yes.
So he goes back and he grabs it and then just drops it right next to her. And that shows you right there where each one of them stand in this relationship.
Makes up for it. I mean, he buys her some nice rags, and you know, they tear up the dance floor, and
Mm-hmm. He gets her a necklace.
yeah, not a bad guy. He just doesn't fall for. I mean, as much as she was just looking for her Jesse, he was definitely looking for a Joan Wilder, right?
Yes, definitely.
His life just got flipped upside down because of her. So like, not only does he become wanted, she destroys his car, she releases his livelihood, his boat dreams are dead, all because of this woman. He doesn't know it's directly her fault, but it is. We know.
Yeah.
Half a year's work just flew south for the winter, all right? My Jeep is totaled. In about 5 minutes, everything I own in the world is going to be wet. So can you lighten up, please? I really don't have the time.
So when he throws her luggage off the ravine thing, I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Okay, let's make some time.
It almost looks like he starts liking her more once she's so you know, like worshipped from those drug lords, where he's just like, oh, maybe she is kind of a big deal. And I'm like, that's kind of scummy, but I like the way they did that. Or he's like, oh, maybe I should be taking this lady seriously a little bit.
It seems she gets more attractive as the movie goes on.
Oh, yes.
Through like, you know, normal things like, oh, I fell in mud, I have mascara now. Oh, I did this. Oh, my hair's like all that jazz. So like from that moment where he lands like, you know, like face first into her in the mud puddle,
which is
like,
a great shot.
Right. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And of course, we have to thank a good storyboard artist who came up with the famous splash between her legs.
That's like, you see that turn starting. It's like, all right, now that you've broken her down, it seems like there's something to play with there.
That's another thing that I've noticed a lot more watching this as an adult, is that yes, she's meek and she's way out of her element, but there's very few times where she is a damsel in distress. I mean, she's a damsel in distress, but half the time she gets herself or gets them out of trouble.
Yeah.
Like the first part where the cops are shooting at them, she decides to brave the pre-Columbian arc to get across, and she ends up swinging like Tarzan across, and he's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, and then he gets across, and then also when they're in the village with the bell maker, he recognizes who she is because he thinks he's going to go up there and be Mr. Macho and talk to this guy. Like, every time he goes up and talks to someone in Spanish, they're like, yeah, I speak English, you jerk.
That's a great bit. Yeah.
It is a great bit.
Señor, buenos días. Necesitamos uno.
What do you want, gringo?
Oh, you speak English. Oh, that's great. We understand that you have a car. We would like to rent it or buy it. We have to get to a town.
What do you call this I'm living in? A pigsty?
And so she helps get them out of all these situations. Even at the end, when she's in that fight with Zolo, played by Manuel Ojeda, and she's shouting for him to come help her, but he can't get there, and he's out of bullets. He's finally out of bullets.
Yeah.
She fights him off and gets rid of him and dispatches him on her own. I mean, she needs him to comfort her afterwards, but that's about it.
Well, that's a big character moment for both of them. So like he realized that he cares about her more than the jewel.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, development. And then she gets like, you know, her moment. She throws a knife. Like, you know, I'm like, all right, even though he blocked it, you still threw a really badass knife. Like that was pretty good. And then, yes, defeats this man. Like that guy, he gets it. Like, you know, crooked police deserve it. So whatever.
Yeah. She balances him out really well, and it takes him a while to kind of, you know, recognize that. But once he does, he's like, oh shit, I can't really let her go now.
Right. And she kind of comes to that realization that, okay, I don't need this guy. I mean, she wants to be with him and everything, but he tells her, is like, you're gonna be okay, you always were. And then she finally is like, yes, I can handle things, you know. I don't have to live my life through my stories. I can live my life and have my stories reflect my life instead of the other way around,
which is awesome. And it explains how you can knock a book out so fast. I lived it.
God, I can't believe how this got to me.
Well, I was inspired.
Jody, you are now a world-class hopeless romantic.
Hopeful.
I think I would have liked a different ending. Like from that moment on, like for her to write the ending that happened and it not happen might have been cool. Or like I'm maybe like I'm just confused here. So do you take it as she had seen him the whole time and that's like the boat that they now like, you know, own together or whatever? Or is that her the first time she is seeing him since this whole debacle has gone down? Because it seemed like it could go either way because of how matter of fact they speak on this. Like,
yeah, I took it as that's the first time they're seeing each other because they talk about she says, I like your boots, and he tells her how he got, you know, died in his arms, blah blah blah, and I can't stop thinking about you. So for me, that was their reunion.
I couldn't stop thinking about you. I even read one of your books.
Then you know how they all end.
Their dialogue felt so much like when like couples meet at like the bar of a hotel and are faking what they're saying. Like everything else had this different type of chemistry than I thought that particular scene. And maybe it's just being in the, you know, the center of the city throws some stuff off, or ADR or whatever might be the issue there. But it felt different. And I was like, I don't know how to take this. And I need to hear what the people think.
And I mean, you could take it either way. I mean, it works that maybe he met her at the airport and, you know, since then they've been together. Yeah, you could take it either way. I've always taken it as that was their reunion right there. And
I think whether they meant to or not, leave it ambiguous, or they just maybe fumbled a little bit. Subsequent movies, that has become a trope, like where two characters, usually a couple, go through a big experience or a big arc or something, and then they have that, you know, meeting up, you know, a couple of years later, and they act like that's like they're meeting for the first time thing. It's because it's almost become a trope, and probably because of this movie.
Yeah.
Do you get like American Crocodile Dundee vibes?
Now I do. Thanks a lot.
That's a great movie too, though.
It is a great movie. It is a great movie. Even the sequel's not that bad.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the third one.
What was that one? Crocodile Hunter in Hollywood or in LA?
Yeah,
something
LA.
like that. Oh Jesus. Ugh.
Look out! It's a giant deadly anaconda!
Sorry. And not to bury the lead here, because I don't want to, you know, I don't know if we're going to do a Jewel the Denial, you know, follow-up video, but, you know, going back to the ending of this, like you said, I have a hard time viewing this as an ending because, of course, you know, it's a continuation.
Yeah. And yeah, we can delve a little into Jewel of the Nile. I mean, because there's something about that movie I like, because it's like, okay, what happens after the happily ever after? After they ride off into the sunset, then what?
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe you're right. Maybe we need a break.
It's been kind of tough lately.
Yeah. When the going gets tough, tough go to Greece.
I would have liked more, honestly. I like, they could have kept going, like switch it up, do this and that. Oh, I was invited to this you know, castle, a murder. Oh no, like do all the different, like, you know, Murder, She Wrote tropes with just those two characters traveling around the world.
They created 3 characters that are permanent. You could do movie after movie with them.
But I mean, that's why I think that War of the Roses is the perfect ending to this. It's like
they're just
we get
like
to see
trying
these
to
two
kill
fall
each
in-
other.
Oh my God, it's perfect.
When I look at you lately, I just want to smash your face in.
Smash my face.
It's so good. That's such a good wrap up to. I know they're not the same characters, but they just feel like they are. You know, it feels like this was like the natural progression, or the more realistic progression. This is the non, you know, movie romance thing, and they just end with him, you know, her flicking his arm off of her while they're dying. Spoiler alert, but yeah.
Right, no, because in this one you have kind of the honeymoon period, and in Jewel of the Nile, the honeymoon period is over.
This is the marriage,
and this is the marriage, and then with War of the Roses, it's like, I fucking hate you.
Yeah, this is the divorce.
You ruined my life.
So good, so good.
I love any movie that has a titular line in the movie, and we get that in this one. Just when he's like trying to romance it out from under.
Back off, me creep, just back off. Oh, I'm the creep, huh? Well, at least I'm honest. I'm stealing this stone. I'm not trying to romance it out from under her.
He gets some of the best lines, and right after, before that, when he interrupts them in the cave, he's like, "Now let's go before Batman comes home."
Now move it before Batman comes home.
Yeah.
And then he ends up being in a Batman movie years later.
Yeah.
Someone was watching us and went, you know what? He's kind of little.
He's kind of penguiny. Yeah.
And there, I stumbled across some article from back in 2005 where they were talking about maybe doing a third one in the series, but
Still are talking about it.
Oh gosh, I don't know what they would do.
Once Twitter's a buzz with this review, it's gonna
It's gonna spearhead the revival.
This is the straw. This is the straw to get it made.
If there was a movie that you could like Indiana Jones 5, I'm like, dude's gonna kill himself just practicing for the movie.
Well, he already hurt his shoulder.
Exactly. But this is one where I'm like, well, you don't have to go crazy with action. You could just like, I'm big on, I would love for more movies to just switch the genre in a sequel. Like you had a horror movie. Oh, let's just do a romantic movie and see how did that affect their lives now that those are the survivor couples, like things like that. And like, this would just be like, okay, maybe they have kids and with all the money that she's made from the books and this and that, they're off doing something. But every once in a while they call in, now Dad, if you were to come across like, some shit
right. Well, that's kind of like what they did with the Alien, the first three, if the first one was a sci-fi horror and then you get an action movie, and then with the third one it was more like a thriller, almost noir kind of film.
Yeah,
but those are like cousin genres. I want something totally different.
Totally different.
You wanted the family film with the xenomorphs.
Yeah.
We need that comedy alien film to come out.
Telling yuck.
That'll revitalize the franchise.
Oh no, not again.
What's your favorite scene in the movie? Let me ask that question.
I had my favorite line, but I really like just Danny when you think back in this movie, at least for me, before rewatching it, the first thing that played in my mind is just Danny DeVito running in the open field. It's just such a funny image.
His back like this.
And where does he think he's going? Because his plan is to get away. He's like, Mounties. Run.
Mounties.
Danny DeVito is in a different movie like than everyone else, and it works. It gels
works so well.
Works so well.
I already mentioned I love when he falls grabbing the wanted poster, but so I won't bring that one up again. How about when he's in the car and he realized like the federale guys, he's like, oh no, I don't speak English.
Americanos, I spit on that.
You must be French. Yeah.
Oh dear, Americanos, spit on them. I hate Americanos and scum.
Really, all the best scenes are with Danny DeVito.
They are the best comedic scenes. One of my favorite. I really like the whole where they arrive to the town and they get cleaned up and everything, and they finally have that romantic connection that they can have because they're not trying to traverse a jungle and survive. They finally get to sit down and talk with one another, and they have dinner and they do the dancing and all that stuff, and they finally kiss and there's fireworks in the background, and that's probably the most like stereotypical romance that you get in this
but
film.
It's earned.
It's very earned. Yes.
Did he earn the tuxedo he bought?
Yeah, exactly.
And his little hip movements.
Oh yeah. Who knew? But even them like laying in bed after the act, this is an 80s movie, so we didn't get the heavy Kenny G, seeing two people in a bed, with a lot of shoulders and stuff. No, it's just them just like
tight embrace.
Yeah, and it's hot and it works, and you get that connection, and there's no fat in this film like whatsoever.
No.
It's so quick and crisp, and entertaining from credit to credit, and that's hard to do. And
There
this
is, yeah.
totally nails it.
Because there's really nothing, there's no scene I can point to like, oh, they could have cut this out or they could have cut this out. Everything is needed and works well to tell the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah, maybe a little bit in New York before, but it's still fine.
Yeah, that scene where her agent is like talking about the different guys. She's like, loser, loser, major loser.
Too angry, too vague, too desperate. God, too happy.
And I still don't know what a Mondo Gizmo is.
You're a Mondo Gizmo.
What am I? I'm what?
There was no big difference between most of those guys, like looks too. I was like, all right, that one's the handsome one.
They're all kind of puffy.
Yeah, they're all in a blazer and a turtleneck, and I'm just like,
it's a time period where I'm like, I don't know how old any of these people are. Like, if you were like, oh, they're all 30, I'd be like, okay, they're all 53. Sure, of course they
all
are.
between the age of 30 and 65. Yeah.
I don't know how old her agent is. Especially seeing her like 20 years later, where I'm like same. I have no idea.
Yeah. She's got the Willem Dafoe thing, the vampire thing going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even up until the early 90s, people looked a lot older than they actually were because Kathleen
shoulder
Turner,
pads.
Yeah, because Kathleen Turner was like 28 when they made this movie. I mean, they were all still so young, but they all look like they're adults. Because I mean, it's just a very different time period.
Yeah, I guess like because there haven't been as much like consistent dated looks now, and maybe because we're inside them we don't see them the same way.
Very true.
Like you're like, all right, this person has a helmet of hair, okay, that's this. All right, you're doing that. All right, we're in little like bell bottoms, okay, I understand what decade we're in, but now everyone's like, I still see bell bottoms, I still see that. Oh, that person has some weird things. Like I guess like you'll be dating them people in like 10 years by like colored hair maybe, but I think that's gonna trend continue too. So it's like blue, okay, it started, we're at that era start period, and it just never ends.
Because I think the most recent like film time that seems really dated is like around the millennia, like early 2000s, because there was so much, the fashion was just out of this world, and like
hackers,
hacking and everything. But,
flip phones, pagers, you can lock in on some things.
Yes, and I mean, and that's why a majority of these movies are so timeless, because the technology doesn't necessarily date them. I mean, there's no cell phones or anything in them, but cell phones and computers and everything have just moved forward at such a lightning pace. And I kind of talked about this with Chris when we were talking about Deep Rising, because there's some very dated tech in that movie as well. that movies like this seem more timeless than things like from the early to mid 90s moving forward.
Yeah, and I especially like that Kathleen Turner got to do a complete 180, because for all intents and purposes, she should have been pigeonholed as a sex pot, right? For after Body Heat, that's what she stamped her ticket, and that was going to be her roles from then on out. So that's why you could tell she was so excited. She was chomping at the bit to get down and dirty and just do this role, because she even said, she's just like, I never felt objectified in this film at all.
It did a great deal for my career. I mean, Michael said it made me America's sweetheart.
And that's so cool. And I mean, it's not like she didn't show any skin. Like, there was moments where she's completely naked, but it was never in a sleazy way. Yes, Michael Douglas's, character is a little sleazy. He's that scoundrel, but it wasn't like an Italian horror. It wasn't Gwendolyn.
No. And I mean, even if you look at her career going forward, she did tons of comedy. I mean, she did like V.I. Warshawski, which was a big bomb, but still it was a comedy. And then she did Serial Mom.
Oh my God. The fucking best.
Pussy Willow Stoddy.
My favorite John Waters film.
Oh my God, so funny. And then of course she was the voice of Jessica Rabbit, which it kind of solidified, I think, her sex pot status, her sex symbol status. And I mean, she's such a great actress, and she's very versatile, because she can do so much more than just the romantic lead or the femme fatale. And it's really a shame that what happened to her, because she was stricken with just crippling rheumatoid arthritis that she wasn't able to do anything for so many years, and it's great to see her back doing things, because I think she's still great and she's still funny and she can still do good work.
I always felt like she was the female version of James Earl Jones a little bit.
Yeah, she's got that iconic voice.
She got an iconic voice.
I get what you're saying. They call me the female James Earl Jones.
I'm gonna put a clip in here of like Darth Vader with her voice in it.
I'm not bad.
I'm just drawing that one.
Yeah.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Thank you guys so much for coming on here and doing this with me. And I'm glad you guys are like-minded, that, you grew up with this film and enjoyed it so much. And it was great to go back and revisit it. And I'm glad I got to finally talk about it.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. I'm not going to speak for Stephan, but I think he would say the same.
Oh, for sure. It's so often we're watching really bad shit movies. Right? It's so nice to watch something that like, oh no, I actually really like this one. This is going to be a great revisit. And it was. The only thing that could be worse is if you watch something you really think was amazing and you're like, oh no.
Oh, there's a lot.
But this was not that.
Dude, that happened to me so hard when we did the So I Married an Axe Murderer review. God, that movie doesn't hold up.
Oh no, I love that.
Don't watch it. Do not watch it again, man. It ruined my life. I was like, what the hell? Yeah.
Well, he's doing a spin-off of that.
Oh.
He's doing a movie because it's called The Pentaveret, because his dad in that movie goes off about the Pentaveret, and one of them is Colonel Sanders. And he goes off on the Colonel Sanders rant.
I hated the Colonel with his wee beady eyes and that smug look on his face. Oh, you're gonna buy my chicken. Oh.
And evidently Mike Myers is going to play like 6 or 7 different people in the movie.
Will
so
Norm Macdonald play Colonel Sanders?
Possibly.
I want to see that Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers role where they just play each other, but with fun. 10 different characters. Yeah.
I'm still bummed we never got the Sprockets movie.
Oh yeah.
Now's the time on Sprockets when we dance.
I think that one could have been good.
On the new what are they calling that one? Triplets? It's
been in development
for so long.
Right. Arnold Schwarzenegger keeps saying that it's coming, but who knows?
It's coming, I promise.
It's coming,
I'll
I
watch
promise.
anything with Arnold.
Get to the chopper.
All right. Tell the audience once again where they can find you guys.
You can go to www.cannibal.video and you can see a new video every Friday, or JustDaggers.com and you can see all the things I'm doing.
Lindsay, thank you so much. Stephan, this was a blast. We got to do this again sometime. Find me at the They Said We Said Network on YouTube. And then you could follow me on Twitter at JohnTheHost and at The Cult of Films. That's what we're mostly doing, talking about your favorite non-mainstream films, or just films that people thought were going to be mainstream that just lost their ass. And we just like, how did this lose their ass? And it's fun.
Lost their ass.
Lost their ass at the box office.
Yes, and thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for tuning in to talk about Romancing the Stone. Here's my VHS copy right here.
Ooh. Nice flex.
Oh, yes. And keep watching the channel. We've got, I'm going to have even more guests on talking about even more beloved films on I Love Movies. I still don't know if that's going to be the title. It'll probably change. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Needs a catchy jingle.
Needs a catchy, like some alliteration or something like that. But we're going to keep doing these videos. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. And until next time, we'll catch you later.
The measure of the audience's attention isn't always whether they're laughing or not. It's if they hold their breath, you know? And we'd hear all these, I'd say, yeah, we got him.